So I was looking online for a tutorial on how to do a write-on effect, and I actually just couldn't find anything that was easy enough to follow. So I figured I'd make one myself. So I'm going to show you two ways to do a write-on effect. Okay, let's start with the first and probably maybe easier way. I have a text layer here with some handwritten font, but this technique can be used on anything. It could actually be an image of text. It doesn't necessarily have to be a text layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my pen tool with my text layer selected, and I'm going to draw over my text in the same direction that I would write this S here. Okay, and a couple of pro tips here. If I click and I keep my mouse held down, I can actually hold the space bar to reposition this. And to see this a little bit better, I'll undo this for a second and change this mask color to something a little bit easier to see. Okay, so as I click and drag, I'll create curves, and if I hold down the space bar, I'll also be able to reposition this. This can be super helpful when we're trying to line up this mask on our text. Okay, we'll also want to use our handles to line this up nicely. Okay, so once I have a mask on my text here, and I'll tell you what, I'll actually do two masks so we can see something else in a second. Each letter I'm going to want to make a different mask for. Okay, so I'll just click away, click my text again, and then go ahead and make a mask for the next letter. Okay, over here we can see that the mask kind of got a little funky here. I can just go ahead and reposition some of this and change up my curves accordingly. And something like that should be just fine. Okay, on this text layer, I'm going to add an effect, the stroke effect. Okay, that's under your generate. Okay, generate stroke. I'm going to take that stroke, put it on my text layer, and I'm going to set the path to all masks. Okay, because I have multiple masks here. All masks. And from here, what we can do is we can change the brush size just so that the mask, or the stroke on the mask rather, encompasses all of the pixels of our text here. And we could even use this opportunity to adjust these paths so that they cover this a little bit better. Okay, it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, okay? Great, so something like this. From here, what we can do is set the paint style to reveal original image, and then change the end percentage here to animate from 0 to 100%. Okay. Now we have to be careful here. If our mask path is slightly off and the brush size isn't big enough, you'll notice that it'll start to actually eat away at some of our text here, and that might not be the look we're going for. In this case, definitely not. So I'll undo that. A couple other things you can consider playing around with, okay, would be the brush hardness. Okay, so we can see, oops, if I change this end somewhere over here and I zoom in, the brush hardness is just going to define how soft this edge is. Okay, so I can change this brush hardness to be more flat, right? Or I can kind of give it a feather by bringing that brush hardness down. Okay, you can see that that's probably a bit too much in this case. So that's the first way. Okay, that totally works. Let me offer a different way of thinking about this. So I'll just delete these effects and basically start from scratch. The second way to do this would be with a track matte. Okay, and we've actually talked about track mattes in our class. So what I'll do is with my text layer unselected, I'll create a shape here with the pen tool. I'll make sure my fill is set to none, and my stroke, I have it set to green just so we could see it, with a stroke width of 27. We could always update that in a minute. And here's what I want to showcase. Let's do something else. Let's say for whatever reason, let's say I start this down here. Okay, we have to remember that the write-on of the write-on effect takes into consideration the direction that we're drawing this in. So I'm doing this from the bottom to the top on purpose, so I can show you how to reverse this if you need to. Okay, and from here, maybe I will change my stroke width just so that everything is encompassed here. On this shape layer, I will add a trim paths, and animate the end position to go from 0 to 100. Great. And then all I have to do is set my text layer to be a track matte. And if you don't see track matte, you just have to click this little icon right here, take its track matte from the shape layer. Now you can see that my S is writing on. The only thing here is in this case, I'm going in the opposite direction. So if that's the case for you, for whatever reason, the easiest way to fix that is to go inside of your path and switch the direction by reversing it. So we can reverse direction on, and you can see that now it's coming from the top here. And of course, if I press U to pull up my keyframes, I could play with this timing. I could play with the interpolation to just give it a little bit more character. And we can really fine tune this to be exactly how we want it. Now, when it comes to the other letters, what you might have to do is temporarily turn off this track matte. And you could theoretically create new shapes for every letter, or you could use the same shape layer to create these paths here. So let's say, for example, I have my shape layer selected. As I draw another stroke here, it will add to my shape layer. Okay. And just like before, we'd have to play with these handles to get them right. We could also break the handles by holding Alt to change the direction of these tangents here. So for example, we could do that or that, right? Okay. Now what's going to happen here is we're going to have to open up our shape 2, which is the E in this case, add a trim paths, or I'll tell you what, even better, we can go inside of this trim paths from shape 1 from the S, copy that trim paths, paste it on shape 2, open up the keyframes, and where your current time indicator is will be where your keyframes paste. And now we can control this write-on effect with these keyframes here. That's looking cool, and then just set this back to be a track matte. Looking good. And of course, again, we can play with the timing of this, we could play with the interpolation, and just really make it our own. The distance between these keyframes will determine when the second letter starts. So that's how you do a write-on effect.